Hey everyone, I'm Necromuncher, and today we're going back to Glassburn, my fantasy pseudoscience world-building project. If you didn't watch the first video I made for this project about the magic systems, I highly recommend you go and do just that, so you'll have a better understanding of some of the things I talk about here. Meaning, if thermokinesis, graviturgy, Islium, sparkle storms, or spirit glass mean nothing to you, go check it out. Without further ado, war. For Glassburn, I dared to imagine a world without an ongoing war. I hate war, I lived through several, and I am living through one now. It sucks, and it's overglorified, to say the least. So I wanted this fantasy, made-up world to not be at war. I am not the first one who dares to think this way, and while the inspiration for the creation of my world the way it is didn't come as a result of watching LUPANET's videos on his world of Ormauk, I do follow a lot of the same lines of thought. Namely, using or trying to use my favorite type of setting, Solarpunk. But more on that later. Stories are made through conflicts and resolutions. Having no active war means no war-related conflicts, but there are many other types: personal, political, civilization versus nature, progress versus tradition, and many more. Also, having no active war doesn't mean that there were no previous wars. There can always be some remnants of past conflicts that help bring depth to world building. Also, there might be wars or other martial conflicts outside the scope of the land or civilization I'm exploring in this video series. The shape of war and the form of those remnants would take is usually defined by two things that influence one another: culture and technology. Culture defines the reasoning, symbology, art and literature, and the end goals of a certain war, as well as the people's support or resistance to it and the government, army or structure that is carrying out said war. Technology defines in many ways how affected will the unrelated civilian be to the war, how personal it will be, how information and troops move across distances, and in turn, how large can the scale of the battlefield be. For example, with only swords and shields or even chariots, battle is up close and personal. The battlefield is usually just a field or a hillside, and the civilians are usually unaffected other than forced recruitment and possibly high taxation during wartime. Regarding a similar level of technology on the information side, when all you have is slow writing and maybe avian carriers, information won't be widespread. Different war fronts could be weeks behind important updates, and civilians might not even get updates about their loved ones who are fighting the war for months. This lack of knowledge, depending on the culture and the person controlling the information, could make or break a country. A strong leader with a war-loving populace and glory-loving culture, say like Sparta or warrior Norse tribes, might see a bloody and expensive war as a worthy effort. If any of those requirements aren't there and stuff like the blood toll, taxation, or lack of communication go out of hand, the people might revolt, or the supplies might not stand the load. So, while I don't like war and war stories, glorifying struggle and bloodshed, I think most cultures are built upon these struggles and their past victories. So when I approach world building, I must consider the cultures and technologies that brought upon the wars of the past, and that have molded the current landscape and way of life. So, back to Solarpunk, with a twist. Just a quick definition, Solarpunk is the optimistic opposite to Cyberpunk. In Solarpunk settings, civilization has reached a state of harmony with nature by harnessing technology and renewable power sources. Solar panels obviously come to mind, but also hydroelectric stations and wind turbines. Beyond power generation, Solarpunk usually emphasizes cultivation of plants and incorporation of plant life into open urban areas. This applies to animals as well. and the few Solarpunk settings I saw usually either put some token animals or make them the whole story. I don't intend to ignore it or forget it, but more on animals and urban wildlife in another video. So, what's the twist? Well, anachronistic medieval Solarpunk, basically. Which, comes to think about it, is very elvish in concept, at least when thinking about classical Tolkien elves and Magic the Gathering Selesnya elves. So, not much of a twist, except maybe the fact that there are no classical elves in Glassburn. Again, more on reimagining of races and species in future dedicated video. For now, let's address the solar panelephant in the room. How on earth, as the people in this setting call their planet, do medieval-like civilizations have semiconductor technology that allow them to create a power-generating diode? Simply put, magic. Well, they supercool Elysium using thermokinesis, of course. By supercooling the gas, it can decompose into a solid crystal that would remain solid even after being reheated to room temperature. That Elysium crystal happens to be semiconductive. Due to the magical properties of Elysium, I assume that a lot of research has been focused on it compared to other materials, so it's not too wild to think that at least one nation would discover two stable Elysium compounds with opposite charges, thus creating a p-type and an n-type semiconductors that would lead to the development or discovery of a diode. Also, we might assume that due to the nature of Elysium and its natural activation using sunlight, that culture tested the effects of heat and light on this new thing, and discovered the Elysium-based solar panel. I know that's a lot to assume of any normal medieval culture, with all the farming and god-fearing they have to do, but let's maybe think of a culture whose religion is focused on discovery and research, a prime deity of enlightenment and revelation through hard work, and a heavenly antagonist of secrets and deception. But more on that in a future video. However, the question remains, what would a pre-industrial society do with generated electricity? They don't have motors, electric lights, or any capability to store energy like a battery, and most folk have some ability to control temperature using thermokinesis, so heating is irrelevant. Initially, I thought making arcs of lightning have a role in rituals, combat, etc., and I might get back to some of those ideas at some point, but for now I wanted to focus on something more mundane: transportation. Like I said, motors have not yet been invented in this world, so most of private transportation is still carried out by foot or mount. However, with the ability to provide a strong and steady electric current using Elysium diode solar panels, the ability to supercool materials using thermokinesis, and the use of graviturgy by carefully burning spirit glass, my natural conclusion was magnetic fields and magnetic levitation railways. Fantasy, medieval, maglev transportation. So unique, so special, so shit Avatar did it first, with the earthbending busing set tram. Well, as I said in my previous video, trying to find something that is 100% special and unique is a fool's errand with no actual benefit. The Airavan, as the people in the setting of Glassburn call it, in my mind is still visually and technologically distinct enough from the busing set tram and still cool enough to keep. Also, the potential this sort of transportation has to develop communication in and between cities can lead to really interesting stories. The idea for how to create a somewhat plausible solar panel technology in an otherwise pre-industrial setting came after talking with an author friend of mine. I won't go into details about the story he wrote, this is a world building video, so we'll talk world building. In his book's world there's a prime flaming bird deity, and he wanted to add more deities. According to him, he had a revelation. All birds! Meaning, he had something that worked and that people already believe is divine in nature, so he kept it simple and hinged the pantheon on it. I did roughly the same thing, where I had this unique magical substance that people in this world are already invested in. So why not just say they are very invested in it? researching its secrets and appliances as part of their worship. For the technical side of how diodes and solar panels work, I have lots of physics studies to thank, but if you want a nice YouTube video explaining the subject with cool animations, Steve Mold does it best, in my opinion. Link in the description. A little about how magnetic levitation works and mostly how supercooled magnetic disk is made and propelled to levitate. A link to Nile Red's video on the subject is also in the description. I know this video was especially all over the place, making lots of assumptions and speculations, and I made lots of promises for future content about less than half-baked areas. I hope I can deliver on it. Glassburn is a project I started developing for this channel specifically, in hope that with your feedback and ideas I could make it into something cool that won't rot away in my Google Drive. I almost threw away the whole project and started over, but luckily some people on the TreeLancers, ExpelledMysteries and Tales of Lost's respective Discord channel helped me to rise from this pit. Thinking of an entire world on your own is, to me, unrealistic, so talking about it and getting feedback is crucial. Your comments really are valuable in helping me understand what's working and improve. If you want to support me financially so I could continue develop Glassburn, you can donate on my Patreon. I mostly put their memes and sneak peeks from the creation process of my videos, but once more people join in and as the project grows, I plan on pouring in some more content. If you don't want to or can't join for any reason, you can still support me by hitting like, subscribe and sharing the video to your friends or foes. It's free and it could really help me if you would. Also, as I said, I'd love to hear feedback on the video and ideas for Glassburn, considering everything I talked about. That way, we could all get better stuff in the coming future. In the meantime, thanks again for watching. Tell me in the comments what you want to see next, and for now, bye!